this computer. All right. Good morning, everyone. Michele Molitor here, live from Hayward, California. Whoop. It's the Wonder Woman Unite call for April 21st, 2017. And we are delighted to welcome everybody here to the call. We're going to go around the room, have everybody introduce themselves as some other folks come on and join the call, I would imagine. And get some updates from folks. And then we're going to be talking about how to navigate through office politics, which is always a challenge for folks, whether you're in an office or dealing with teams or colleagues or out in the world, right? And we'll go from there, and then we'll round up the call in about an hour. And our next call is May 19th at the same bat time, same bat channel, 9:30 a.m. Pacific time, 12:30 p.m. Eastern time, and 5:30 p.m. British Standard Time. So, without further ado, if you ladies who are here on the call want to introduce yourselves, what you do, where you are in the world, and what's one thing that makes you a Wonder Woman today? Who'd like to start? Barbara's going to start. I could see it in her eyes.
Oh, Michele, thank you so much. My name is Barbara Caith. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I'm a life coach, and I work with people who are over 50 years old who are facing major transitions in their lives, whether they're deciding whether or not to retire, whether they're experiencing an empty nest, whatever life transition they're going through, I've been through, and I'd like to help you. What makes me a Wonder Woman today? Actually, I'm not feeling quite like a Wonder Woman today, and that's why I'm happy to be on this call. I am looking for some inspiration and some encouragement. Okay. So thanks, Michele.
Sure thing. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Miss Monique.
Barbara, yeah, before I get into me, I'm just curious, Barbara, is there a specific area that you're looking for some encouragement from today?
Yes, actually, I have a lot of ideas about how I can build my business, and I'm not following them. I don't know if I'm not a lazy person, but I just seem to have lost my get up and go. So but thanks for asking. Okay. I'm fine, but yeah. I'm just a little disappointed in my energy level.
Okay. All right. Well, I am glad I asked, because it's amazing that you bring forth the part about just where you're at with getting the business, because that is a lot of what's been coming at me lately, myself and from my clients. I just got off a call with one of my clients and bringing some of that forth. So there could be some stuff we can bounce off of.
Okay, turn off the volume on that door for me, darling. And we can still hear it.
We can bing off each other.
Yeah. Here we go.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. It kind of ties right into what I was saying. We can bounce off each other.
Yeah, that's a good noise, isn't it? But you were saying about your clients?
No, I'm glad I asked, because when you're talking about like where you're at with your business and what is I had a personal coaching session this morning with my coach that it was around, okay, what am I doing to really kind of go forward? And it's been my thing the last couple of weeks has been a lot about what is it taking to me moving me forward in my own business. And then I just got off a call with my client from the same area, so I can see that, you attract what you're into. And
yes, yeah.
So I'd love to, so if it's something that absolutely I can share to kind of bring forward, that's all I wanted to know is where you're at with what you were seeking, and you threw that out there.
Well, thank you.
Great.
So
tell us a little bit more about you, Monique, where you're at, what you do, and what makes you a Wonder Woman today.
Wow. I am So I'm a life coach with an emphasis in a couple of different areas. I love the coaching of the leader within, really developing your personal leadership and personal effectiveness. I think a lot of it starts from within, but I have a huge aspect of really working through some of those deep emotions that are keeping people stuck, all for the sake of really living into their their fullness, but knowing that emotions really kind of keep us back from showing up fully and being the Wonder Woman that we are. So I love my work. I love it. I feel like it's almost like my lifeline. I just love it. And so, what was the other thing? What makes me a Wonder Woman today? It's a great question that you ask, and I'm actually stepping into realizing who I am and what I have. And in this process of really identifying my ideal client and the type, and really narrowing in like who I really want to be working with and what I'm doing, has really given me great opportunity to be reflecting on my life, my experiences, my training, and probably the biggest part for me is claiming and proclaiming, but claiming, holy crap, I've done a lot, and I've got a lot to offer, and I've got a lot to bring forth to the world. And recognizing that it's not about putting me above or better than, it's about who I am and bringing that forward to bring value to other people's lives so they can also see their own magnificence. And I think I'm starting to own it and love it.
That's really beautiful and so exciting. And, it goes back to what you were saying a few minutes ago. We attract like-minded things, because as you were saying that, my whole body was kind of tingling because I'm in a similar place, right? I've been coaching now for 16 years.
Wow.
And it's been a very long science experiment with myself, essentially, of how do I get the hell out of my own way, right? How do I increase my energy, Barbara, right? How do I shift my motivation? How do I figure out how to do this thing called consulting, running my own business?
Right.
And it's literally just been probably maybe in the last 6 months, to be really honest, that I have gotten this clarity of, oh, wow, I really am a great coach. And I bring a lot to the table, and I have all this stuff, as you said, really just starting to own myself, and not from a place of ego, but
no.
Oh, wow.
Look
what I made. Right. And I think part of that comes through the reflection we get from other people. I've been really blessed just over the last few months of having some amazing people show up in my life to be a mirror for me. And it's like, oh, wow. Okay. And it's humbling and beautiful and awe-inspiring at so many levels. And it just has given me a deeper level of calm. My shoulders have lowered, and I can breathe more deeply and not feel like I'm spinning so much. So I feel where you're at, Barbara. I've been there. I'm sure you have too, Monique, in that place of, how do I get there? How do I make this work? How do I, and we start spinning and spinning and spinning. And what I found is the moment that I let go of my attachment to how this was going to look and how this was going to work, things literally rolled in at my feet. I have a quote here in my studio that has been here since I moved in 11 years ago. And it's from Franz Kafka, and it says, "You do not need to leave your room. Remain sitting at your table and listen. Do not even listen. Simply wait. Do not even wait. be quiet and ordinary. The world will freely offer itself to you to be unmasked. It has no choice. It will roll in ecstasy at your feet.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's so powerful.
Yeah.
It is so true. And when you talk about like how do we, I'm so glad you finished it with, it's not about the how. The how will unfold exactly as it needs to, when it needs to. And it's truly an aspect of trusting yourself, trusting the empowered adult part of you. The ego is going to want to hijack you. Like, oh, come on, you got to do it. You got to do it. You know, you got to. But when you can calm that ego and just sit and really be still and trust yourself, trusting the universe. And for me, it's trusting God. It's trusting the divine together, just knowing you've got it. And my role is to step into receiving, stepping into doing it, but not worrying about the big how. And just trust is a big thing for me right now. It has been for the last couple of years. It's huge. It's just that, and that is where I think, Michele, when you're talking about when you let that go, it just all unfolds. It's like letting go of the control and just knowing that I'm doing what I need to be doing. It's there's so much complexity around it, and yet it's so simple.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
The easiest and hardest thing to do ever.
You want to grab life by the handlebars, but at the same time, you want to like release the control grip. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Yesterday, I did an informational interview with a woman who's a school teacher who would like to become a coach, and she was investigating different coaching schools. And I'm very active on the board of my local professional organization, and I do talk to a lot of people who have questions like that. And part of it is exhilarating because I get to share what I believe and what I learned. But she asked a question that I think set me up for this morning, which was, how is your life different from what you imagined when you decided to become a coach? And of course, it's so different because when you decide to become a coach, how do you know what a coach, does, what it's like to try to get more clients? So I've kind of been pondering that a lot. And I think that's why this morning I just feel I'm at a state of questioning. But like I said, I'm all right. I'm fine. I just, and maybe this is part of my problem is I do think too much. I am, I'm constantly introspective and what am I doing and have I accomplished what I set out to do? Mm. And I mean, I realize it's a journey, but sometimes I lose sight of that.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. I have a friend, colleague, teacher of mine, Patrick Ryan, who's former CTI trainer, coach, former Buddhist monk. And one of the things that, I have this little Patrick voice in my ear that comes to me when I need it. And it's the monk part of him that comes out. And it's the question for you, Barbara, to continually ask yourself, and just, it's like not even asking yourself, it's asking your higher self. It's what's needed now. Mm-hmm. What's needed now.
Yeah.
And just sit in the question. That's what he always used to say to me. Just sit in the question and the answers will come, but you just have to be open. And sometimes that means just sitting and taking what I like to call as a meditation nap.
Yeah. But sometimes there are so many answers. I mean, my mind is going so fast, and that's where I start to feel, well, I can't possibly do all of these things. And that, sets me up for, well, I'm not doing anything, which is not true. But yeah, I mean, I have so many ideas. Sometimes I can't sit still. Maybe that's what I need to focus on more, is sitting still and not writing lists of what I can do.
Right. Well, from a expert list maker and whirling dervish, former whirling dervish, pick one and do that for a while and see
Yeah.
what results you get. Right?
Yeah.
When
So-
I was teaching 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and it's a question I constantly ask myself, especially when I'm kind of like, whoa, I just kind of come back down and go, okay, in this role right now, like in this role this week, so whatever the role is, your role could be, mother, teacher, coach, whatever. What's the most important thing I can do in this role this week? So if you're talking about coaching, and if it's an area in coaching that you like, let's say you want to create a workshop or you want to write a blog, like what's the most important thing I can do this week? That tends to help narrow or help say no to all the distractions.
Yeah.
This is my focus.
Yeah.
And it may be a question to try on and see if it helps you kind of narrow and prioritize, like, okay, great, I've got all these things, here's my whiteboard, I got all these things. And I love how it ties into Michelle's question, like, what's needed now? And what's the most important thing I can do? Because the other things are important too, but what do you really want to be focusing on? And if you know that now you're making a choice, it almost empowers you to say, I hear you, I'm coming to you, and I'm here right now.
Yeah. Monique, I think that's great advice. And thank you very much. I think you're right. Focus is really important, and also establishing priorities, because not all of the ideas that I have are all that important. They have to, I can prioritize them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, ladies. That's all sorts of yumminess. And so I want to kind of shift our conversation over a notch to the topic that we threw out for conversation today, and see where that takes us as well. And because I think some of this shifts into that, which is, how do we deal with, whether they're office politics or community politics or national politics, how do we navigate that more successfully, given how the climate has shifted recently with just all of the things that have been going on, whether it's the Fox scandal or what's happening in Washington or what's happening in your own community and the people that you're working with directly. So I'm curious to know about your experiences, either currently or in the past, of what kind of office politic challenges have you come up against, and how have you navigated those successfully or not?
Well, Michele, I think you know that I was a freelancer for almost all of my career. So I really don't have that much experience with office politics. So I could address what's going on politically now, unless you want to stick to office politics.
No, the crux of this, the heart of this is really, given the challenging atmosphere that we're living in at the moment, politics is a tricky thing. What are the dynamics of how do you navigate that conversation personally, right? Maintaining your center, maintaining that sense of self-respect and doing right in the world by yourself and your morals and values.
Right. I think the most important thing is to surround yourself with like-minded people, but to also remain open to other points of view. But when you're feeling so beaten up by everything that's going on, it's really nice to have a group that you can be with, even if you're not talking about politics or issues, but these people have the same values as you do. And, then you go out into the fray and listen and, try to be respectful to other points of view, but there's always a safe place for you to go back to. I found that's really important.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Monique, you had a thought on your face?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I love the fact that you pointed to said something like, well, what we're in at the moment. And I think that the form of it, whether it be politics or the things you threw out there, like, the Fox News or all these other things, those are forms. Those are forms that happen to be showing up today. But there's still a function that runs underneath, like this current that runs underneath all of them, that has been there for decades. And, what came to me when I was thinking way back, probably about 20 years ago, going up for a position, it was it was a position very specific. Okay, I was going up for a position, and I was very blatantly told. I actually respected the forthright and the honesty, but I was basically told that we're just going through this interview. It's a horse and pony show because we have to, but we've already selected the gal that we want. It was for an undercover position, and I'm like, well, then don't waste my time. So part of me appreciated the honesty, but it also was not fair. And I know exactly why they chose the other person. So when you're asked the question, that was the situation that triggered me immediately. It was like, oh, I remember that. I'm like, okay, so what was the purpose? Like, what have I seen from that was one situation of all these other ones, right up to the current time when we talk about our politics right now, our United States politics, not just work politics. And I'm realizing that a big part of this is either how you do or how you don't deal with it is really an aspect of your voice. Like, how are you communicating? Are you communicating from a tantrum and you're screaming and you're being really just this child, or poor me, and blasting everybody else and calling everybody names and nobody gets you? I mean, like, how are you showing up? So how are you communicating? Are you communicating from a place of that still, and you said this, Michele, that's why I chuckled, because this aspect of self-respect, this aspect of values and principles, are you maintaining your own sense of self-worth, self-respect, the self-confidence, the whole self of you, as you interact with the conversation, whether it be, hey, you chose someone else because they had bigger boobs, or you don't like me because I voted for Trump, or I voted for Hillary, like how are you holding yourself while you're having these conversations? And what I've noticed is, in light of our current world politics, or our United States politics, government is the word I'm trying to find. Our government politics it's really interesting for me to see how different people do or don't engage, and how are we truly valuing each other's voice. I want to be heard, but help me understand your experience. I want to know your experience. I want to know your thinking, but can we do this in the manner of truly respecting each other's differences, if there are? And it's not necessarily like people back like you're an intelligent woman. How could you possibly vote that way? I'm like, whoa, that's a personal attack here. So there's a lot of things like, how are we truly showing up? How are we communicating? How are we respecting ourselves? And if we respect ourselves and we hold our own values and principles and we stand on that, I think we can truly engage with the other person if they too are at that same place. So there's an aspect of help me understand, and are you willing to hear me?
And that's a really great point, Monique. I was having a conversation yesterday with a client who was vying for essentially a pay raise, promotion to what she was already doing. She's been doing the job up here, but she's getting paid down here. And she presented it to the three, or the five C-suite executives, three of whom think she walks on water, but the CFO and the CEO are like, well, no, that might be favoritism. And they're women too, which is, fascinating to me. But, it didn't happen. And so she ended up tendering her resignation because when it came down to it, money wasn't the driver here. It was really that feeling of self-respect and I'm not being respected. I'm not being valued for everything that I'm doing. And that hurts, and I'm going to go take care of myself.
Yeah.
And so I really applauded her for validating herself, because one of her comments was, oh, I just need to get validation that this is the right decision. I'm like, well, how about just give yourself the validation? Try that on. And, we talked through that, but it's oftentimes, that trying to have that conversation that you're pointing to, other people don't want to have it because they're non-confrontational. They're too afraid to own their voice, and they're in a position of power. So they just use that to squash the conversation. And that's where the tension happens, because we can't have that real conversation because, people don't like to be real a lot of the time, right? They'd rather hide out. And so that's the challenging place that I'm pointing to at the heart of this conversation, right, that I wanted to get to. Because in my own experience, back in my corporate days, I've had all sorts of super challenging male-female dynamics that I've had to contend with, and egos and people talking down their nose at me. And at that point, I mean, this was back in 2000, I didn't have the wherewithal. I didn't have the grounding to look at them and go, what? Like push back on them and go, no, I'm sorry, that's not acceptable.
Right.
And so it was a very painful process for me to go through that eventually led to me getting fired, right? Because I was literally bullied out, essentially, because I was a woman. And so it's something that is one of those big wounds that I've done a lot of work on and worked through. And I know I'm not the only one, out of all of us who are listening in and out there in the world. And so the point here is being true to yourself and learning how to get clear on your own values and what's important to you, and be willing to walk away from a job that is not honoring you.
Yep.
That is
or
not
a relationship.
Right. That's not respecting you.
Yeah.
And Michele, just like you said that this woman wanted some validation, that's exactly what I meant by having a community behind you.
Yes.
You should validate yourself, and hopefully the community behind you will say exactly what you said to her. Well, in your gut, you knew that you were doing the right thing. So why do you need us to tell you? But it's so wonderful to either have a coach you can go back to, or a community or a relationship that supports you in that way. Because, Monique, you said some really beautiful things about reaching out to people with respect and honesty and a real true curiosity. You want to understand their point of view. But so many people can't respond to that.
And you're right. And I have to respect that. I have to realize, okay, someone's not ready to go there. Let me give them space. And I have to realize, Michele, you're absolutely right. Not everybody is, quote, confrontational or willing to go in to have those hard, conflicting conversations. And yet that is so where the beauty and the growth of everything comes from. But you're right, Barbara, not everybody is willing to have those conversations. And I've been experiencing that a lot in the last, 6 months. And okay, some people are and some people aren't. And so I think there's that aspect of it too. You have to realize that not everybody's ready to go there. Stay open, keep your heart open, your arms open. So when they are ready, the rocking chair on the front porch is available.
And I think it's important not to take it personally.
Yes.
And for me, it's much easier to not take the political views of the woman I walk with every morning personally. Yeah. But in Michele's case, her person was talking to 5 people who had power over her.
Yeah.
And, it doesn't sound like she took it all that personally. She said, no, I'm worth more. I'm sure it took her a long time to get to that point where she offered her letter of resignation. I'm sure she did think, what's wrong with me? Why don't they see my value? But I think it's so important to not personalize many of these situations and just trust your gut. She knew she was worth more. And luckily she was able to say, sayonara.
And
kudos to her.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a very emotional thing for someone who's very, got it all together. Given all of the life challenges she's been thrown. And so this was really struck to the core of her. Yeah. And it got us to a much richer conversation. But then that even had her clam up, right? Like, oh, I'm feeling really open and vulnerable now. Okay, I'm going to have to close back down.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's the challenge for a lot of people. I mean, as coaches, we swim in the land of let's be open and have vulnerable conversations that are really biting but good and juicy, right? We think that's the best thing since sliced bread. But most people are like, no, right? Can't do that. It's horrifying to them.
Even people who sought out coaching.
Yes, exactly. Like, oh, no, never mind. No, I'm not going to. Forget about it, right?
Yeah.
And so my question for you guys is, you ladies, sorry, is, when you're in a situation where there's a differential of power, for example, how can we frame the conversation to get someone to even come to the table? How do you have that? How do you create the space for that respectful conversation to actually even take place? If someone, what is the saying? You can drag a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, kind of thing.
Yeah.
How do you get them to see or realize that, oh, this actually conversation would be a beneficial thing?
It's a great question. And kind of like what you were saying, I wish I had some of these tools 20 years ago. I think it would have affected I was extremely successful in my career. And I think I believe I was very respected, but it would have been very different as well. So I love the question when you talk about difference of power. And what I've recently been learning is just about that. And there's an aspect of really, truly knowing and being able to distinguish when are you giving your power away to somebody else. Whether it be once you start blaming somebody for something or they have done something to you, you're going to that victim mode. You're giving your power away to someone else, versus that aspect of knowing that you are your own authority. And I think that when more people, and I wasn't always that way. I was the one that was giving it away. They're definitely not always, not 100%. I mean, I was very much could stand on my own times, but I would, even if I thought, like, what does someone else think of me? Boom, I'm giving my power away. What do they think of me? Like their opinion determines my value. That would be an example of giving my power away to them versus me. I know my value. I'm curious about your opinion, but I know my value. So I think the more that you can stand in owning your own power, you're the authority of your life. You know your worthiness, regardless of what you do, just who you are. From there, that right there is a huge aspect of not having a difference in power. That's like an internal aspect. So if you can engage with a person knowing they don't have power over me, right there is a huge start.
And you're absolutely right. And that is the hardest thing of all, especially for women, right?
Oh,
I'm 51 and it's taken me 50 years to get to that place, to really own my power.
Absolutely.
And stand in it, in that place of self-confidence, to be able to push back, and people have asked me, how, if I knew then what I know now, how we would have handled the situation when, a subordinate of mine walked up to me and said, well, I can't work for anyone who's not smarter than me, because he had his PhD from Stanford. And I was so gobstruck in the moment, like, what did you just say to me? Right. But I didn't say anything because I didn't know how to push back. And I wasn't in that place of power. I was a scared rabbit with this facade of, oh, I have it all together. Look, I'm fine. Oh,
Right.
And then you were questioning, well, yes, how can he work for me? He's got a PhD from Stanford.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the stories.
Yeah.
Right. And
the
it
beliefs.
created a horrible downward tailspin that eventually led to, my
Well, it
demise
must have been
there.
so hurtful.
Oh, it was a lot of horrible things.
Yeah.
But it was the most powerful lesson that I've ever experienced. And all of that led me to coaching, which changed my life, right? And changed my career. So it was a gift, but in the moment, it was the most painful thing I've ever dealt with.
Right.
I was like, right? My brain went sideways.
I love it, because I just was having this conversation last week with my coach, and it was that aspect about it came up around boundaries, and like I realizing, wow, I've never really I thought I set boundaries, but I never really got past chapter 4, and realizing that was an area, and what was it reflecting about me, and I went, okay, this is time to self-respect and self-honoring, etc. So huge connection together. And I said, how do you set that forward without being considered like a bitch, like you're pushing someone else, like, don't cross this boundary. And then, so in this conversation, it's kind of like what you're bringing up, like, how do you have interact with these situations? And he basically gave me that, help me understand what's going on with you, which ties a lot with my 7 Habits training, is that seeking first to understand, like, so it's like, help me understand where you're coming from. Is one way, but even before, so I got 2 tracks of thought going. One is that there is an aspect here about standing in your own power, knowing your authority, and from there you can start asking those questions to help me understand where you're coming from. So it puts you on that same place, so a person doesn't have power over you. And then when someone comes at you and says, I can't work for someone who's not smarter than me, you're in your own power, then you can interact with that. But to have that respectful conversation, I think ties in a little bit around that boundaries area. Like, so now you know who you are, you know where you're at, and you need to be able to have some ground rules, even in your own being, if not verbalized. Like, when this starts becoming a personal attack, that's not a respectful conversation.
Right.
So a person, I think, needs to be clear, like if I'm getting attacked, like, how could you do that? And there's a sense of judgment and criticism. Help me understand what's going on with you that makes you feel that way, to express that way to me, or something, like, because that's not acceptable to me, or however you want to be able to word it. But there is a sense of knowing. I think if I had a bigger, deeper sense of my worthiness, just in who I am, and I was not so worried about being rejected again and again and again, and doing things to avoid the pain of rejection, because we all have something we're trying to avoid, then I think I would have stood up for myself a lot more in my previous career. And it was amazing, because there are times I really would and times I wouldn't. And even times when I would, then I was penalized for standing up for myself, and then how I had to overcome that. I'm like, wow, I can see it all so clearly now. But I think so much of it comes back to our own work in ourselves to know really who we are, and there we can stand, and then we can truly express ourselves. I go like that because my throat gets clogged when I can't. We can express ourselves in a graceful manner without shoving ice cream down someone's throat, trying to prove our worthiness. So we don't come at them like a fire hose, but we also don't sit back like a doormat. We're able to truly just stand and say, here, I really want to have a conversation with you. Help me understand what's going on. Help me understand why you don't feel like you don't want to pay me what I'm asking for, or help me understand what it was about the selecting this other person over me. I want to grow, or whatever it is, and help me understand what's going on. And are you willing to understand my point of view? Where I
And that's a
stand?
key point. Are you willing to understand my point of view?
There's that's the second half. So let's say you're having a conflict with a colleague or a close friend, okay, and you're having that, whoa, huge significant differences, and they don't want conflict. Is help me understand where you're coming from, and truly coming from a heart of peace, where you're really wanting to hear where they're coming from.
Right, and it has
And
to be
you might have to
really
take
genuine, or else they'll get the defense.
be genuine, and when they start expressing, and even if they say, I'm really angry at you, no defensing, let them speak it. Okay, wow, really get into the heart of the matter, like, holy crap, you I mean, maybe it requires an apology, I don't know, but I mean, just, you hear them. You don't have to agree, but you hear them. And when they feel heard, are you willing to hear where I'm coming from?
Yeah,
they may say no.
And that's really the key, I think, is people who are non-confrontational don't feel heard. So it's like, why should I even go there anyway? Because they're not going to hear me, right? And now I'm in a position of power, so I'm not going to open myself up to that, right? But and so it's about creating that safe space. And that comes from the place of being genuine and really actually listening. As you've been talking about this, Monique, what's been coming up for me is looking back at times where, I've been leading a meeting or leading a group in different ways and not feeling heard. And I can see where it came across as I was kind of a bull in the china shop, trying to get people to, like, come on, people, hear what I have to say. And of course that doesn't work, right? Then people recoil, right? Yeah. And I couldn't figure out, well, why can't I get people to hear me? Why can't I get people to understand that I'm really coming from this good place of trying to create collaboration and forward movement? And it comes back to, well, where was I coming from?
Yeah.
And I was coming from more of that needy place, the fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear
not being heard, not being seen, not being validated. You didn't feel like you mattered.
Right. Yeah. Right. And so doing that internal work to clear that out is what allows us to show up and go, oh, right, I can stand in the middle of the room and talk with a regular voice and not have to raise my voice, and people will actually stop and lean in versus, going off. Earlier this week, I gave a talk on confidence to a bunch of 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, girls, the Pink Panther Empowerment Party at Franklin Middle School. And if you ever want to challenge your skills as a facilitator and a speaker, work with a bunch of kids, right? Because they're like, blah, 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 right? And instead of, trying to scream over them, I would just quiet my voice, right? And like, so I have a really important secret that I want to tell you, share with you. Do you guys want to hear it? Like, oh, yeah, right? And so they would quiet down and lean in. But it's a practice, right? Yeah, and so I can look at those as more of a gift to, like, oh, okay, how do I deal with rowdy, unruly people who don't want to respect me? Because I was the same thing just a few weeks ago. I was at career day at a different middle school that I work with. And some rooms were really respectful, the kids, and other rooms, the teacher didn't have them wrangled, so they were wrangling her and kind of all over the place. And it was like, okay, this is really testing my patience and my need for order. And well, okay, let's see what I can learn from this, right? So it comes back to the same thing of what we're talking about, is owning that stance, creating that energetic presence in the room. makes all the difference. One of my teachers, Satyan Raja, wrote a book called Living Ecstasy. And it's this beautifully written, beautifully designed book. You can open up anywhere and get a nugget, right? And one of the things he shares is, how do you own the room? And it's literally by who you're being and the energy that you're projecting, right? Because if you're being a scared rabbit, your energy is tight. Yeah. But if you're like, I'm clear and confident and calm in who I am and what I bring to the table, people feel that difference. Yeah. And, as my favorite line from When Harry Met Sally, I'll have what she's having.
Yeah, I got it.
I'll have that. I don't know what that is, but that's what I want right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think that's great, Michele, because what I'm thinking is, the three of us obviously have done a lot of work. We've thought a lot. We've done a lot of internal work. And perhaps that's even what brought us into coaching, because we have, not that we don't backslide, not that we don't occasionally feel like this, but we have been through this. We do we do understand it, and we want to share. And that's what I said when I started out. I've had some pretty rotten things happen to me, but essentially I'm a happy person. And I want to share with other people who are going through expected or unexpected transitions and show them that, there's life after this, and help them see what it's like afterwards, and help them figure out for themselves what they have to do to get there. Yeah. And so I think what you're saying is really beautiful. And you said it was a gift. I'm not so sure if it was a gift. I think you worked very hard for it.
Oh, well, thank you, Barbara. I appreciate that. Yes, I have worked very hard for it. I've spent probably hundreds of thousands of dollars working hard for that clarity.
I know a little of your story, so I know you've worked hard for it.
And presence of mind. And it truly is my passion and my heart and my spirit to be able to, share just, bits of what I've learned with other people and help them find that for themselves. And I think we're all in that same boat.
Yes.
For sure. And so for all the people who are listening in, who maybe perhaps haven't done this kind of deeper level of excavation that we've done, what pieces of advice might you give to the ladies who are listening in as to how to get to that place where they can claim themselves, reclaim their power? It's a question for you too.
Yeah, Barbara, do you have?
I'm sorry. I thought you were reaching out to people who were on the phone or something.
I was asking the two of you to share for those who are listening in who aren't on the call, so they'll have this nugget at the end of the call.
And how do we reclaim these?
So what piece of advice would you give to someone who hasn't done this kind of excavation, inner work that we have all done to get where we are? What advice or inspiring thought might you share with them about how to begin that journey, or how to do that for themselves?
Well, again, I think I would tell them first that this is not personal, and if they could, to put this aside, and then just to sit with it. And as an ex-journalist, I believe in writing things down. So I would say, write down the pros and the cons, the positives and the negatives. What did you contribute to this? What did they contribute to this? But put it down so that you can look at it and analyze it. And I think that that's so powerful. And I think just keep thinking about what my role was in this, and be willing to accept that, you could have been wrong, but maybe you were right, and this other person was acting out of a sense of power or anger or whatever. And just try to keep that, this isn't personal, this is something I'm trying to figure out, and just keep on working on it. And I think that it would change in different situations. And I think that sometimes it would be easier than others to do this. I mean, because as we said, all of us go through this, maybe not on a daily basis, but, we do have lapses in our Wonder Woman, attitude. And we have to just trust that we can get it back. And I would encourage people to know that they can get what they want if they're just clear about what they want, and if they just aren't just complaining, and if they're trying to move forward.
Thank you.
That's nice, great. Barbara.
Thanks.
And it's beautiful, Barbara, and I would love to build on that from an aspect of the question was, how do you get to a place of reclaiming your power? And I just, Barbara touched on it, and Michele, I love the frame of that, because this reclaim, it is an internal power. It's not domination over someone. It's a dominion, and it's reclaiming. It's something that's always been in you. And there's this possibility that, well, I say possibility, but there's this, it has been smothered, it's been dampened, it's been covered by layers of life and false beliefs based on other people's opinions and standards, etc. And you can just feel the heaviness. And the reclaiming is that aspect. I love the word, Michele, of excavating. It's really starting to take those covers off and start to dig, kind of like shutting off the layers or the dirt that's covering this beautiful gem underneath called your personal power, who you are at the core. So my advice, if you will, would be to realize that you have it in you already. You already have it in you. You are that just from your simple being. Mm-hmm. And realizing that there's a lot of beliefs that we have so deep ingrained in us, we don't even know how much they are directing our own limitations. So really being aware of really getting to a place of what are you believing and what is the truth behind that? How is it serving you now? It might have served you when you were 13, but how is it serving you now? Additionally, I would also say being aware of your motivation as you're trying to, quote, reclaim this power. Is it a motivation of proving that I'll prove how good I am, I'll prove I'm a woman who can do it all, like this energy of determination? It can be an asset. Having that energy of determination, perseverance, persistence can be an asset, but really, what is it? Are you trying to prove how good you are? Or is it an energy of determination to seek the more of who you are? So there's a huge distinction there. Or is also motivation of like, poor me, I can't do anything. I'm a victim here. I'm just a woman, I'll never get ahead. So what's the motivation? And the bottom line is, I guess, being to the fact that this is an inner journey. This is it's the work, doing the work within, it's the aspect of your being. All the things I just talked about was just all the aspects of your being to reclaim your power versus the doing. And our world is so much about action, doing. And oftentimes we get coaches. What's your action plan? What's your action plan? But you know what? A lot of that action plan has to come into doing the inner work of developing your being. And that would be my advice of reclaiming your power.
Thank you, ladies. Let's see. You guys have covered a lot of good points. I think the only thing that I want to add to that is it takes courage. It takes tenacity. Mm-hmm. It takes a willingness to look into the darker places within yourself. And it's not about reliving it.
No.
It's about reviewing it and moving on from it.
Yes.
And not about judging it.
Right, right. And so to that note, I'm going to toss this out to the group as a gift. I'm actually in the process. I'm really excited. I'm in the process of getting certified as a rapid transformational therapist doing hypnotherapy as another way to get at these deeper conversations that we have with ourselves that are oftentimes unconscious and we don't know they're actually holding us back. It's been amazingly powerful work that I've experienced and has like that shifted things in my life. And so I wanted to put this out to the group as a gift as I'm kind of going through my training and I'm practicing. If you ladies or anyone who's listening on the call would like to have a complimentary session over Zoom with me to discuss and work through a particular topic that you want to have shifted inside of a session, then please, send me an email or a message on Facebook or however you all have my deets, Michele at nectarconsulting.com. And I'd be happy to get something scheduled with you because I'm really, really excited about this as a way to further deepen the work that I'm able to provide my clients. And but I'm still learning. So if you're willing to, have a virtual session with me, we can see what we can create for you. So
very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Michele. Great offer.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's relatively new. I'm still in the process, but working through it, and there's a lot of different applications for it. Personally, professionally, leadership, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like, okay, but now I have this. I'm a little nervous, but I'm excited all at the same time.
Good.
So, well, great. Well, on that note, ladies, just as a reminder, our next call, please mark your calendars, is May 19th, Friday, May 19th at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time, 12:30 Eastern, 5:30 British Standard Time for all of those who are listening in from around the world. And I forgot to mention, our tribe has grown by 15 new members over the last month. We're now up to 169 members from all over the world. So it's super, super exciting.
That's great, Michele.
So, congratulations, Michele.
Thanks. So I'll be posting the recording up in the private membership group and letting everybody know on the Facebook page and on the social media feed. And please, if you guys have questions or insights that you want to share, please share them in the Facebook group and on the social feed for the Lean In Circle so we can create more conversation for everybody. We have a lot of women who are, anxious to learn more and to be of contribution. And so I'm trying to get more people into the conversation to have that spark and grow. So please share your brilliance with everyone. So, well, thank you, ladies. So lovely to have this conversation with you. Have a blessed weekend, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the call next month.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Take care.